Hi, John Morgan here with Bob's Market and Greenhouses, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show here on the internet. And well, this week I wanted to start off by talking about our podcast. So, our podcast, the Keep Growing podcast, is first episode launched yesterday. So you can head over to our website at bobsmarket.com/keepgrowing to find out more about the podcast. Or if you listen to podcasts, you can head over to any podcast app and search for the Keep Growing podcast and find it and subscribe. This is our third season for the podcast. We do 10 episodes per year, and we release them every other week throughout the summer. And well, this year it's a little bit different because of coronavirus. I had originally planned on doing a bunch of in-person interviews and actually have them scheduled for March and April, and also getting video segments to use here on Bob's Live. And well, things happened and my plans had to change. So this year we are focusing on victory gardens. And if you missed it last week, here is the trailer for this season of the podcast.
What's that? A message coming in over the wireless? It says, grow a victory garden now. Why, that's the ticket. We'll have food security in the midst of this global pandemic with a victory garden. If only there were one of those newfangled internet podcasts to help us keep growing.
Hi, John Morgan here with the Keep Growing podcast. Join us this season as we learn how to grow a modern victory garden. Learn more at bobsmarket.com/keepgrowing. And you can subscribe on all the major podcast platforms. Let's keep growing to victory. So, with the first episode of the podcast being available now online, you can head over and give it a listen. And in it, I kind of talk about sort of the logic behind victory gardens. And that's what the entire season is going to focus on. So, we're going to get back to the basics with gardening. And really, at the end of the episode, I give folks a challenge, and that is to grow your own victory garden and help be as self-sufficient as possible this year. Because, I don't know about you, but you head to the grocery store and there's a lot of things missing from the shelves. So, along with the first episode, if you head over to the show notes, we have these cool little certificates that you can print out, and you can stick it in your window or put it on display in your garden. But it basically says, I'm accepting the challenge of growing a victory garden this year, and I'm going to use it to be self-sufficient or to donate food and really help out as much as I can by growing my own vegetables. So, how many folks are planning on growing a victory garden? And I just went out of focus. Woo! Yay. Hello, camera. There we go. So, if you're planning on growing a victory garden, and I know a lot of people are going to be gardening this year for the first time, or they've tried gardening in the past and, had mixed results. But I've talked to a lot of people and they're really digging in, pun intended, I guess. And this is going to be their first year gardening. So, where do you even start if all that you have is a lawn and you don't have any garden beds? And well, I wanted to kind of simplify things and give you a way that you can till up a garden bed without needing to get all fancy with raised beds and all that. if you're just wanting to grow vegetables, the main thing is just tilling up a patch of soil. Well, what if you don't own a rototiller? Where do you go from there? So, in this week's video, I had a flower bed that I wanted to put in at home, and the process, it translates between the two. So, I went the manual route. I've got a rototiller. It would have made this job a lot easier. But I went the manual route, so you can see just how you can go about creating a garden bed from a patch of grass. So let's take a look at that. And of course, if you have any questions, type them down in the comments, and I'll catch you on the other side.
Hi, this evening we're here in my front yard where I have this really nice stone flower bed. The only problem is I have these two guy wires right here for the telephone pole that's in my front yard, and it makes this area right here really awkward to mow around with the riding lawnmower. So what I'm planning on doing is extending this bed out this direction, just here on the ground. So I'm going to till it up and then mulch over this area, and I'm actually planning on planting some gladiolus bulbs right here. So this project, it's something that you can do and apply to both flower beds but also vegetable gardens when it comes to preparing an area that is basically just lawn. So if you're starting off this year as a first-time gardener and all that you have is a patch of grass to start with, this is a good place to start. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in with a shovel and strip up this grass. I'm actually going to use it to fill in some holes elsewhere on my property. And then I'm going to till up the soil underneath, mix in some potting mix to kind of make the soil a little bit better, plant the gladiolus, and then over top of that, I'm going to put down a layer of mulch. Okay, so when it comes to stripping up the grass, you just kind of want to go right underneath of it, just like that. Alright, safety disclaimer time. You should always call before you dig. I'm digging around right underneath of this power pole. Now, you'll notice there weren't any marks on the ground, and that's because right in this area, there aren't any buried utilities. So make sure that you always call before you dig. Alright, so now that I have the sod removed, I want to till up this area. And again, all that I have here is a shovel. Well, I do have a hoe over there, but to till this up, what I'm going to do is take, I found the base of that. I'm going to take the soil from here Move it down to here. Right along this whole bed. And if you were doing a garden, you might want to go deeper. Since this is a flower bed, I'm going not really a full shovel length deep, about half a shovel length. Now that I have that moved out of the way, I'm going to come back to here, pick up this, and flip it over. Go right beside of it, pick this up, flip it over, pick it up, flip it over, flip, and we just keep working our way back. Pick it up, flip, flip, and what we're doing is we're breaking up the soil, mixing it up, so even if you have raised beds, you could do the same process. And I'm getting, you know, a decent workout. I mean, I'm not winded, but it is a pretty good workout. I believe I just found a rock. Alright, and now that I have this initial till done, I just want to come back again with my shovel, start breaking it up more. So as you can see, you really don't need fancy tools. Sure, a rototiller helps. That piece of cement block out of the way. But just using simple tools like this, a little bit of elbow grease, you can make it happen. Alright, so now that I've got this tilled up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and mix in some Pro Mix, and that'll just kind of help amend this soil a little bit, help break it up a little bit more, and just overall help the plants that I'm getting ready to plant there. And I don't know about you guys, but when I see these bales out in the store, or in our production facility for that matter, I just can't help but giving them a good old slap. This is a 2 cubic foot bale, but it puffs up to the equivalent of 4 cubic feet. So this bale is compressed. So what I'm going to do is cut it open, fluff it up a little bit. I'm going to use some of it here, but not all of it. So I don't want to completely, you know, like rip the bale open. So I'm just going to cut it this way. And then right there, just to get a flap open, I might even go maybe halfway right here. But that way I have a nice little open flap. I can close it kind of back up later. I'm just going to dig right out of the middle right here. Of course, it wouldn't be West Virginia without an ATV going by. And now it's just a matter of mixing in this Pro Mix. So I'm just kind of going right along the top and just doing a little flipperoonie like that. See how nicely that's mixing in with the soil. So right now I'm planting the gladiolus, and instead of planting them in holes, I like to do mine in rows. And I just space them about 2 to 3 inches apart. And I have a couple different varieties here, so I'm kind of planting a mix. Of course, when I get down to the end down here, you always have to keep in mind that it's going to grow up against this. Then I'm just going to cover over this row, dig the next row right here beside of it, and then maybe another row right in the front. Alright, here we have the finished bed. And I did a hyperlapse of putting the mulch on because I've covered that before. No pun intended. Anyhow, as I was doing that, I found this robin egg. And if you find robin eggs like this laying in your yard, little pieces of the shell, the reason why is after the little baby robins hatch, the mother carries the eggs up to a mile away from the nest, and that's to keep predators from finding the nest. So when you find little bits of robin egg like this in your yard, that's why. For this and other great information, visit us online at bobsmarket.com. Now I can't get up.
So, planting or creating a bed like that from scratch is a pretty doable project, even with something as simple as just a shovel. It just takes some elbow grease and some time to do it. So, that's something, that yesterday, it took me a couple hours to make that bed, which it was, pretty small bed, but if you're doing a 4x8 patch, it's not much bigger than that. So that's something that you could easily knock out in a Saturday afternoon. So if you're starting from scratch this year, it's not some insurmountable task. It's pretty easy to do. You just have to pace yourself and not bite off more than you can chew. When it comes to a garden bed like that, it's easy to overdo it and make it much bigger than you're capable of taking care of. Originally, when I was planning that bed, and even up until I started to shoot the video, I was planning on going all the way to the power pole with it. And then I thought, am I really going to take the time to go through and dig all this up in the course of one evening? But then also take care of it and weed it and all that when I have a huge vegetable garden in the backyard that needs more attention also. So I opted for a smaller bed that still accomplishes the same task. That bed, it's kind of utilitarian in that it's just, saving me 30 seconds worth of weed eating. But, that adds up. That's, 30 seconds that I have to do something else. But yeah, when it comes to creating beds like that, a shovel is really all that you need to get started. And as I said on the podcast and on here, this year we're going for minimal tools and kind of maximum results. So if you're a first-time gardener this year, try not to get overwhelmed. Break things up into smaller tasks, and that's the way to do it. Gardening, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's one of those things that takes time. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I planted cabbage plants. And since then, we've had a couple hard freezes. And now my cabbage plants, they're kind of brown and crumbly around the edges. And depending on the weather over the next week, I think they might pull out of it. If not, I might be replanting some cabbage. So I hope that doesn't happen. But if it does, it's one of those things. I should have taken the time when we had those really cold nights and went out and put a row cover on them. I've got row covers in the garage. I thought, it's been rainy, the garden's too wet to get in it. They'll be okay. But while we still have the danger of frost, that's something that you have to watch out for. Over in the comments, somebody said that they stopped by Belpre and we didn't have tomatoes available. This time of year, we get in a few tomato plants for people that grow them in containers. But if you're planning on planting them in a garden, you really want to hold off until after the frost danger's over. I know tonight there's a hard freeze warning, so that's something you have to keep in mind if you're really itching to start your spring vegetables. Along those lines, this week, since it looks like, for the most part, tonight might be the last really, really cold night, fingers crossed, we are going to be rolling out a wider selection of stuff at our stores. So you can look forward to that over the coming weeks. And of course, we're getting close to Mother's Day. And it stayed surprisingly cold late in the season this year. So it looked like it was going to warm up early in March. But then April kind of tricked us. Okay, and I'm starting to ramble. So, that's all that I have for this week. So until next time, keep growing. You're still watching? I'm done. Well, since you're still here, head over to bobsmarket.com and check out our website. We've got some really cool stuff over there, like the Keep Growing podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, smash that notification bell, and all that stuff. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.